Good morning, everybody. There have been multiple requests asking me to please do and finally start doing the overview of the specialty tiers. And today it's time to do specialty tiers. Woohoo! Cheers, applause, right? I need to put some kind of applause inside. I don't have anything in my editing software, so I need to figure something out. Anyway, we're gonna go with the database specialty first because it's the most requested one. Everybody has been asking, when are you gonna do the database specialty? Well, today is the day, and today is the day that this video gets posted. And I expect you to bring me in, hundreds of views for this video from the amount of people that have requested it. I expect this is gonna be a very popular video, but maybe I'm gonna be wrong. Maybe all of the 7 people that requested it will view it and then everybody else doesn't care. All right, so let's look at this one. This is a new, very, very new course, right? I just recently took this one and I'll put the video in the description down there to show you what I was talking about in that one. So what do we have in the exam itself? Well, first we'll look at the exam guide as always. 5 years of experience with database technologies. Yes, definitely. You need to understand database technologies, not just your relational, but all database technologies in a lot of detail. You will need to have 2 years of hands-on experience working on AWS. Focus on RDS and DynamoDB. If you're looking to pass this exam, you gotta know RDS, you gotta know DynamoDB in intricate details. Now, they will ask you questions on specific settings that will make specific actions perform specific things. Okay? This is where this exam is different from all the other exams where technically you could go run the theory and, practice a lot. I don't know if you can practice a lot with databases on your own. If you don't have any database concept, if you don't know how to work with databases, what are you going to do, right? If you don't even know how to make a query against the database, then, there's nothing to say here. Experience is key. And this is what I found out is that my level of experience that I have, I'm not a DBA, but I have worked with a lot of database solutions, both before I started working with AWS and in AWS itself. And I'm pretty familiar with DynamoDB. I mostly use DynamoDB with my clients, but there are, of course, requirements for traditional databases. So I do know RDS really well. I really don't have hands-on experience with any other of the database solutions. Well, Elasticache, yeah, falls into this exam also. But other than that, I've never worked with DocumentDB. I've never worked with Neptune. I do know and understand the concepts of those databases, right? So this is your focus should be RDS and DynamoDB and mastering the two. If you master the two, you are probably going to be able to pass the exam because you're probably going to be able to understand with minimal knowledge on other databases what they do and what they are. The questions around the other database solutions are not as deep. Okay, let me back up. Elasticache, there will be questions about Redis because Redis is definitely an in-memory database. It is not just a caching solution. It is a fully functional in-memory database. You can write Lua scripting against it. So thus you can do things like sorting your data sets and ranking your data on values and do queries that are very similar to SQL queries. So it's kind of a mix and match here. But still, focus on RDS, focus on DynamoDB. Have, broad knowledge of the design of Elasticache, and then the other databases, just understanding what they are and what they're good for, what the use case is, right? If they ask you recommendation engine with where you want to match up a user to a product by looking at other users and the products that they bought. What is it? Which one is it? Graphing, of course. Yeah, graphing. What's the graphing database in AWS? Neptune. Yeah, right. Exactly. I was thinking the same thing. All right. Yeah, score of 750 like always. So this one is, of course, on the specialty tier it gets a little bit more difficult, right? So what are you looking at? Understand and differentiate key features of AWS database services, analyze needs and requirements to design and recommend appropriate database solutions. Yeah, it's more about making sure you understand which, so broadly the test is designed to make you understand which database fits into which scenario, and you'll have multiple scenarios and you'll have multiple database solutions that would fit into that scenario. Now, what are you going to do when they ask you, but how do you configure encryption in this specific database type? Yeah, that's a good question. All right. Let's look at what they're looking for in the domains. Workload specific design. Select appropriate database service for specific type of data and workloads. When they ask you, we got key value data needs to be accessible in microseconds. What's your options? Elasticache or DAX. If it's milliseconds, then DynamoDB could be an option, right? If it's relational data, then your relational databases, and then, you know, sometimes the question is if you know and understand all the features that can be enabled for an RDS database, right? And they're going to quiz you on that. They're going to quiz you to see whether you understand that not everything can be done with an RDS database. You might get a question that will be slightly out of scope of RDS, and the option will be to select EC2 instance with a database on top, right? But if it says the least possible, you know, effort, then of course you're going to go for a managed service, right? Strategies for disaster recovery and high availability. Here we're talking about multi-AZ for RDS Aurora clusters, right? How many nodes in an Aurora cluster? How many read replicas? Up to 15 read replicas, 16 nodes. How many read replicas in a cross-regional deployment? Again, another 16 read replicas in the other region, right? And of course, the understanding that multi-AZ is synchronous, Aurora clusters within a region are synchronous. Everything else, every other read replica, every other option is asynchronous. Design database solutions for performance, compliance, and scalability. Here, there are going to be questions about DynamoDB. Here, there are going to be questions on RDS. And they're going to give you a use case, and they're going to say, expect future growth, right? And then you got to design properly. Also, maybe this is a place where sharding will be where they will ask you whether you understand sharding, or whether you understand the difference between sharding and partitioning. Again, this is not the same thing. Comparing the costs. Yeah, I mean, you know, you got to look at database solutions and compare the costs. That's something you're going to need to look at, right? So for example, if they're looking to pay per query, then Aurora serverless, right? If they're looking to pay per query, but it's not SQL, there's no SQL schema, then DynamoDB. If they're looking to, you know, have a huge cluster for huge amounts of data, then Redshift is your solution, right? Automating solutions, so that's CloudFormation, right? That's CloudFormation here. Definitely, you still need to understand CloudFormation. Data preparation and migration. That's the database migration service. That's the schema conversion tool. So DMS and SCT, you got to know those two. Those two are, you know, part of the crucial stuff here. What else? Execute and validate data migration. How do you do the data migration? What's the best option? Sometimes the cheapest option might just be uploading data to S3. Dumping your database to S3, and sometimes it's the fastest option, right? Because migration strategies with the DMS, you've got to have the DMS instance that synchronizes everything, and then, you know, maybe you'll need a bigger instance because your database is too hot and your RDS copy is not able to be synchronized correctly, right? Or in a good amount of time. Then domain 3, management operations, maintenance tasks and processes. This is where they will ask you for specific features. Like, what is the specific setting for encryption on this database type, on a Postgres database? You got to know that. That's the level of knowledge that you need. Okay? You got to know that. Backup and restore strategies, right? Backing up and restoring is crucial. Understand built-in backups. Understand that built-in backups are limited. RDS has 35 days of built-in backups. DynamoDB, if you use the built-in point-in-time recovery, also 35 days. Redshift, also 35 days, right? What do you do if you want a longer retention? Well, you gotta have some kind of process to enable that retention, right? So manual snapshot, and then how do you execute that manual snapshot? Do you automate it as a script? Do you use a Lambda function? Those are going to be questions, right? Those are going to be really in the exam itself. Managing operational environment of a database solution, literally questions about performance, questions about intricate details of databases, mostly SQL and DynamoDB stuff, right? Scans versus queries. What else? How to look at performance for specific database types, right? Because there are databases that have performance information inside of the service itself. You can look in the system tables. There's databases that will have information about user queries, right? They will have a history of user queries. So that's something that you really need to understand here. Monitoring and troubleshooting, that's CloudWatch, just basic CloudWatch. If you've done any associate tier, you're covered. Troubleshooting for database issues, that's going to be network connectivity or issues where somebody's not connecting correctly. You've enabled encryption, but one of the developers can't connect or something like that. Optimizing database performance, yeah, this is about you knowing how to select the right key for partitioning of a DynamoDB table, you knowing what kind of structure to implement when you do sharding of databases, and of course when to implement read caching with a caching cluster or a caching service like DAX. And then database security, encryption, which is going to be tied into troubleshooting. In all my questions, all the questions about encryption were about troubleshooting, except the ones that were like really hands-on, where it said like, how do you enable this encryption, right? Auditing solutions, yeah, that's also a crucial part, making sure that you understand how to audit access, how to audit your users, how to audit the setup, how to do password rotation in an automated manner. Here, secrets manager could be a question inside of the environment. Access control and authentication. So making sure, again, you have if you are building your solution in the most secure way, where IAM authentication comes into play and where it doesn't, what kind of calls CloudTrail captures on DynamoDB. That is something to remember, right? Go and check out what kind of IAM calls, what kind of API calls, and what kind of IAM roles you should make for your DynamoDB, right? So the management of the tables versus the management of the access to the data, and what kind of calls are recorded by CloudTrail. Remember that. And then recognize potential security vulnerabilities with database solutions. Again, they will give you a solution and they will tell you what's wrong with it. You know, I'll ask you, tell us what's wrong with it. All right, so the first point to start is databases and AWS, right? This is where you start your sort of overview of databases. I pretty much saw questions for everything except in my exam. I didn't see any questions on time stream. I didn't see any questions on key spaces. Everything else was included when I took the exam. DocumentDB, Neptune, QLDB, those were on a very, very, very like high level, like, you know, riding a bike next to the database and saying, yep, that's the one, right? Whereas when we talk about Aurora, RDS, this is like very, very deep. Redshift, I mean, let's say you have to be familiar with Redshift, familiar enough to know what it is and how it functions and its backups and things like that. DynamoDB, yes, intricate details about DynamoDB. Elasticache for Memcached, not really. I did not see Memcached personally, but I did see Redis. Redis was covered in quite a few questions, so definitely that is something to to look at. Now, are you ready to pass the exam? Well, the first way to check is to just go through the facts, right? Go through the facts and answer questions like, for example, hardware and scaling, right? How do I scale compute resources and storage capacity associated with my RDS instance? If you know the answer, you're good. Multi-AZ, read replicas, enhanced monitoring, database configuration. Read the database configuration, read security, read automated snapshots. All of these three are basically covered in here. They're basically covered in the facts. You don't need any advanced training. If you read the facts and you learn them by heart, you will have enough of knowledge of the functioning of RDS. Now, of course, database configuration will lead you to, for example, here, right, the RDS user guide. Now, you will need to look at things like parameter groups in the user guide. You will need to look at option groups and understand what the difference is between the two, right? Connecting, yes, as far as how to connect to your instances and how it connects with encryption, right? Managing an instance, understanding the versioning engine, how the versioning engine works, read replicas, backing up and restoring, all of this, because it all ties into migration also, right? And then specifics for each database, right? Connecting to a specific cluster. Yes, definitely, this is something you need to read. And I hope you hear me here. Hands-on experience is crucial for this exam. More than any other exam, basically. The questions that I got on the exam, I have to say that hands-on helped me pass this exam. The only reason why I passed it was hands-on. I didn't prepare on the topics that I got on the exam. Honestly, I was like, oh, shoot, I have no idea. And then I was like thinking and looking at the answers and starting critically eliminating. As we've already seen, you can critically eliminate a couple of questions always, right? You got to just take a look at the questions and eliminate those that are completely off. And then you focus on the ones that make more sense, right? We can do that. And we'll overview a couple of questions. I'll make an exception and I'll answer some of the questions just to show you how it works. All right. DynamoDB. Also with DynamoDB, what is it? How does it work? Planning. Look at this. Maximum throughput capacity. Look at the limits in DynamoDB. Look at programming with DynamoDB. The APIs. As I already said, which APIs are also captured by CloudTrail. Working with DynamoDB, let's see what we have here. Yes, all of it. Need to know all of it. On-demand backup and restore. Point-in-time recovery, yes. Global tables, for sure. DynamoDB transactions, it's good to know that you have the option of transactions, because now that ACID was introduced in DynamoDB, it's a whole different ballgame for a lot of applications. So take that into consideration. What else? Yeah, all kinds of stuff here, right? So let's look at some of those sample questions. All right, I'm going to answer question 1. That's it. No others. I'm just going to give you my approach to how to solve this one. If you're not sure whether you're ready, but you do have enough experience, just like how I went into this exam. A media company is running a production application that uses RDS for Postgres with multi-AZ. The database is currently 25 terabytes. The IT director wants to migrate the database to Aurora Postgres with minimal effort and minimal disruption to the business. All right. Migrating from Postgres to Aurora is pretty transparent, because Aurora is fully compatible with Postgres. So what's minimal effort and minimal disruption? Well, we got to do it as online as possible, right? and then minimal effort, as automated as possible. So let's look at the questions, and then we'll decide which ones have too much effort to be minimal effort and which one are going to disrupt our database. A, use the SCT to copy the database schema from RDS to Aurora cluster, create a DMS task to copy the data. Now, DMS to copy the data, completely valid. Creating a new database schema for Postgres on Aurora, is it required? We're going to see that. B, create a script to continuously backup RDS for Postgres instance with pgdump and restore the backup to an Aurora Postgres DB cluster using pgrestore. Would this be minimal disruption? No, it wouldn't be, because you're backing up and then you're restoring, and then at some point in time you're going to have to switch over and synchronize changes. So there is going to be a disruption, right? Between when the restore comes online and the last pgdump that was created, and pgdump will dump your whole database, right? So not a good solution. And B, we can eliminate off the bat. C, create a read replica from the existing production RDS for Postgres. Check that the replication lag is 0, and then promote the read replica as a standalone Aurora Postgres DB cluster, right? Is this possible? Right? It would be great, because if you could do that, right, then with a replication lag of 0, this would have minimal disruption to the business. And then D, create an Aurora replica from the existing RDS Postgres instance, stop the writes on the master, check that the replication lag is 0, and then promote the Aurora replica as a standalone Postgres DB cluster. Right? Okay. This also sounds good, but D has a problem, because if I stop the writes, then I have disruption. If I just do question C, right, then I have lag 0, and then I promote the read replica as a standalone DB cluster. Right? Which is it? Let's check A again. Use the SCT to copy the database schema for RDS from RDS Postgres to Aurora Postgres cluster. We don't need to do that, because Postgres Aurora is completely compatible, and this would not be minimal effort, right? So again, A and B we can eliminate, right? So it's C or D. Right? The question is, do we need to stop the writes on the master and check the replication lag is 0 and then promote the replica? Or can we just create the replication 0 and then promote the read replica to a Aurora Postgres database cluster? Right? This is where it's at. And this is where it's like, shoot, if I stop the writes on the master, then I have disruption. If I take this one, then if the replication lag is 0, right, and then promote the replica as a standalone SQL, that's minimal disruption, but that might not be the right procedure. The right procedure might be to actually stop the writes on the master. But is it required? That's where they're gonna get you, right? So what we can do is we can actually look up this question on Postgres to Aurora migration, right? Migrating data to Aurora. So basically, you can migrate directly, right, with a snapshot, or you can also migrate by creating an Aurora read replica. When the replica lag between the instance and the Aurora read replica is 0, you can stop replication. At this point, you can make the Aurora read replica a standalone DB cluster for reading and writing. See, this is like in the documentation, in the first page of migrating, or if you read the first paragraph, you'll be able to do that. So what does it say, right? It says, I only need to stop the replication. I don't even need to stop the writes to the master, right? So if I want to migrate, once the replica lag is 0, where were we? Once the replica lag is 0, boom, we go directly to the new database cluster. So that means that stopping the writes on the master is not necessary. That means C is the correct answer. Ready for more? All right, let's do one more. A medical company is planning to migrate its on-premise Postgres database along with an application and web servers to AWS. RDS for Postgres is being considered as a target database engine. Access to the database should be limited to application server and a Bastion host and a VPC. Which solution meets the security environments? All right, so they all start with launch the RDS in a database subnet group containing private subnets. Yeah, we don't want to be in public subnets. So here we can immediately eliminate B. Yeah, because it says public subnets. Okay, everything else says public subnets. Now, modify the pghbaconf file on the database instance to allow connections from only the application servers and Bastion host. Can we do that on RDS? Can we modify pghbaconf? Nah. We don't have any access to the operating system. We can't see that file. A is not an option. C or D. B we already eliminated because it's in a public subnet. C, create a new security group with inbound rules to allow connections from only the security group of the application servers and Bastion host. Attach the security group to the VB instance. Or create a NACL attached to the VPC and private subnets. Modify the inbound and outbound rules to connections from the application servers and Bastion host. Now, if we don't configure a security group, then there's no access to the instance. So configuring a NACL wouldn't do anything. So that's why C is again the correct answer. Launch the RDS for Postgres database in a private subnet. Create a new security group with inbound rules to allow connections only from only the security groups of the application servers and Bastion host. Attach new security group to the database instance. Yeah, that's where it's at. Databases on AWS. And again, as I said, Aurora, yes, in detail. Go in the docs, read it. RDS, go in the docs, read it. Redshift, skim through it. Skim through the facts, see if you're good at it. DynamoDB, yes, definitely. Elasticache, definitely. DocumentDB, key spaces, Neptune, TimeStream, or QLDB, those you just need to understand what they are. They're not going to quiz you in detail on these, but you do need to understand what they are and when they're applicable. So at least read the intro. This is what you need to read, okay? This first paragraph on the actual commercial page, not even from the docs itself, right? You could go in the docs and read the same thing, but this is really the level you want to have, right? You got to know that it's a graphing database, that it supports the Tinkerpop and Gremlin and Sparkle, and that it supports Property Graph and RDF. Oh, actually, they might ask you about which models it's gonna use. Yeah. So, yeah. I'm gonna take back what I said about Neptune. I just remembered I did have a question about formats. Do look at Neptune also. Do look at Neptune also. Right. Those resources are right there. Go study and then pass the exam. Good luck. Thank you for being with me on this one. And I will see you in my next exam prep video, which is going to be coming up later on this week, probably. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully that will be available by the end of by the end of Friday sometime. We'll see. Anyway, thank you very much. Otherwise, yeah, do check out my new series that's coming up where I'm going to be describing all the AWS trainings, the official trainings. I'm just doing a quick 1-minute recap. It's just 1-minute video with a recap of what the training is. It gives you a good understanding whether that's right for you or not. And if you have questions, write them in the comments and ask more questions. If you need to get in touch, get on LinkedIn and connect with me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn address is down in the description. And of course, if you want to support this channel, if you want to support what I do, please subscribe to this channel. I appreciate every subscription. And of course, we will be celebrating the next level of subscribers at 1,000 subscribers, which right now we're about 240, means we're going to be there in a couple of months. And I promise everybody that there's going to be a really, really cool prize. Like, really cool prize. And of course, I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye.